scientists landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Good afternoon, good evening, my friends. I'm Erica Lukes, and you are listening to UFO Classified right here on KCOR Digital Broadcasting Network, the best network on the planet. I want to give a shout out to my friends in chat, Northern UFOs, Amy, all of you that get in there, Susan, support the show, tell the world about it. You mean the world to me, and I couldn't do this without you. And to be very honest, I do this because of you. I know that all of you are very dedicated to finding out factual information. You all are intelligent enough to see through some of the dynamics that take place here and the misinformation, the ego that we see in the United States with regard to UFO research. For me personally, as I have really delved into this topic, I have found myself moving far, far away from most American ufology and looking to people like Erling Strand, Project Heshdal, and looking to people like my guest this evening, Clas Svahn, to find people that are critical thinkers, to find people that want to look at this scientifically and to rule out things, to make the cases that we find that are truly anomalous even more profound because they're real. I want to tell Clas, thank you very much for joining me. He is in Sweden, and if you don't know about Clas Svahn, this is a very amazing interview. He is the AFU vice chairman and the foremost collector of donations. Go to the AFU website. I'll be posting links in chat. He was born in Sweden and studied at the University for Journalism. He has been a journalist since 1990 with Dagens Nyheter in Stockholm, Sweden's largest morning newspaper. He is also an expert reviewer for UFO, science fiction, and other related books for the Swedish public libraries. He founded the local group UFO Marstad in 1974, is a member of UFO's Sweden's board since 1988, and chairman of the national group since 91. This is, I just have to say, Clas, I'm so excited to have you here because you have done a remarkable work, and I don't think people in the United States have an idea of what you and your colleagues have accomplished as far as preservation and research. So welcome to the show, and thank you for the work you've done.
Thank you very much for your nice presentation. And Sweden is a very small country, but coming to UFOs, we were very early on doing real research, and I'm amazed how many people have tread before me in the footsteps that I'm now trying to walk towards the future in. And this is a very, very, very serious topic. And it's also very serious to take it really scientific, I think. Not just to believe, but also to try to know what we are doing.
And I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that is some of the dangerous things that I see in the UFO community here is we're so focused on beliefs, and those belief systems can be easily manipulated by people who are trying to cash in on things or become a cult-like figure. And that's very dangerous.
There are so many pitfalls when it comes to UFOs and ufology. And I've seen so many of them since 1974 when I started to investigate UFOs. I really was interested many, many years before that. I started off as a 10-year or 11-year-old. youngster reading books about UFOs. But in 1974, I really started to go out in the field, meeting the people who allegedly saw something in the sky and trying to find a solution, trying to find an answer. I was 16 at that time, and so I've been around for some years now, and 44 years,
Wow.
really, when it comes to UFOs.
So when you first started in this at such a tender age, I mean, have your thoughts on the subject changed?
Well, when I'm looking back and reading newspaper articles from 1974, where I was interviewed by the local newspaper, I really said the same things as I'm saying now. I want to have the answers. I want to do this with science behind me. I want to know, not just to believe. I said the same stuff, but of course, I know a lot more now than I did at that time. I have learned to be an expert in misinterpretations into IFOs, to know what people can misinterpret in the sky. And I give lectures and I give courses for 40 people every year when it comes to how to research UFO cases. So this is very important to me. It's very important to not just only look into the 1 or 2% or whatever it is that we call real UFOs, but also to be an expert in the other 98%. Because if you're not that, you cannot distinguish between them.
And that is absolutely correct, and I commend you for that. I think when I first began in a public sense, and I was state director for Utah MUFON here, I would look at the Facebook pages and see how, you know, people were coming forward with sightings, and other investigators would get in there and, you know, you must be an idiot. That's a Chinese lantern. They were very degrading to that person. And I always said, you could take this and make it an exciting learning process, you know, for these people, and say, hey, you got it wrong, but let me show you, you know, what is right about what you're doing. And so I think that's good that you take a positive, productive approach with teaching people how to identify mundane objects.
I mean, you must commend people when they are describing something they had seen so good that we can identify it. I mean, that is really what it's all about. If you have a really good observation with a really good description, you got a chance to find the answer. If you don't have that, it's mostly impossible to do it. If you must have the date, you must have the time, you must have the position, and you must have it written down or contacted to a ufologist within hours, because it just takes a couple of hours. Then your memory starts to make something much more different from your observation than you really saw from the beginning. So you must be there very, very fast. You must talk to the witnesses as fast as you can. And that isn't always the case. I mean, you can look at the Roswell case when people are coming decades after telling stories. I mean, how much are they worth, really?
Right. And that's such a convoluted case, unfortunately.
It is.
So with regards to IFOs, can you give our listeners some tips on how to identify mundane objects?
Well, the best thing you can do is to take a picture of them, because then we have a date and time stamp, and then we can start really to find the answer. Because most people, they can see aircraft, they can see contrails from aircraft. That's one of the most common reported IFO observations in Sweden, and they think they see something very, very extraordinary. You can use flight radar, which is a nice app you can have in your telephone, and you can identify what you are seeing right away. But most people are just looking and pondering what it could be. But you have all the means now. I mean, out on the internet, on the apps, you can do so many things before jumping to conclusions. And of course, the best thing here in Sweden is to call UFO Sweden we will help you right away. We have people answering our telephone all around the clock, and we do this on our free time for our own money, but because we love what we are doing and we want to help people to understand how the world around them really works.
And I love that because you have the same passion for this. And when I watch interviews with you, I mean, you light up. You're so excited about it.
Yeah,
And
I love
to
it.
me, I do too. I have learned so much about the natural world, about human behavior, about astronomy. I mean, I can't believe how much as a person I've grown just through this whole process. And you have done the same thing, and it really is an empowering thing to do for me.
It takes time to do that, and it's also a responsibility for us to have taken us the time to learn this, to give this to our researchers around us so they can be as good as we are. So this is very, very important. I mean, every year I giving this lecture, this training course for 40 new and old UFO Sweden researchers. But 15 of them are new, 25 are old ones coming back again. And we are doing this course since the middle of the 1970s. And of course, some of them may feel a little disappointed that so many things can be explained, but they are not explained away. They are explained. Explaining something away is something different, and it's a very bad word to use. But when they have learned this, they can see the gems, they can see the good ones, because all the other the lights in the skies and all that stuff, they are falling away, and you meet with the real stuff. And that is what keeps me going. I'm going to meet the witnesses, which I do as often as I can, and trying to find the answer, to listen to their stories and to try to see what's behind them. That keeps me ticking.
Oh, and I love that. And I feel the same way when I talk to witnesses, especially if they've had a truly profound experience. I mean, it can be traumatic, it can be life-changing, and it's a very special, it's almost a sacred thing, because these people are brave to come forward. And it's to me, I love that interpersonal, work that we do. So that's really cool.
And it's very important to say one thing. We are not there to convince them that we are right. We are there to give them our view, to show them our facts. And then they can decide if they want to believe our point of view, or if they still want to believe that they saw something completely different. I mean, we are not there to overturn their beliefs. That's not our aim at all.
And that's incredible. And I think that we should try to do that a little bit more in the United States when we investigate cases, because you get the ego involved and people need to be right, and you don't have that. But I like that approach a lot. What constitutes, if you and your colleagues are out investigating, what constitutes a case that is not an IFO? Well,
to be labeled a UFO in the UFO Sweden agenda, you must be more than one witness. A single witness is not okay for us. We must be more than one. There must also be an observation made during a longer time, not just seconds, but maybe half a minute or a minute or something like that. Preferably a daylight observation, and preferably as well not in a very, very far distance. But the main thing is that you cannot be alone, because a single witness is just a single witness. I have done so many interviews as a journalist. I have been on so many court trials. I have so many witnesses, also in the UFO field. And when there are two witnesses, you can get two different stories. That's very, very common. So if you're only on your own, which story is right? I mean, it's just one story. You cannot check that story. So you need to be at least two persons to be labeled UFO here.
And what are some of the most amazing cases that you have worked on in your career?
Well, some of the most amazing cases that has made most impact on myself are the multiple witnesses cases. But I should also say some of them are also single witnesses with Air Force pilots who have seen UFOs and seen them on the radar and chased them as well. So it is a contradiction that I say those are very, very interesting. But when you meet the guy who is flying these supersonic aircrafts and they have seen the UFO on their radar screen and been outflown by it, that made an impact on me, of course. And also met with an Alitalia pilot coming from Italy, landing at Heathrow Airport, who and his co-pilot met a cigar-shaped object in 1991. It was coming towards the aircraft, nearly colliding with it. And they asked the Heathrow radar control if they saw anything, and they got an answer back, which said, yes, we are seeing an unknown object. It's passing you 10 nautical miles behind you. And they landed, they filled out a near collision report, near miss report, and they were told that it was a helicopter. And they said, of course it wasn't. It was the wrong size, the wrong height, everything was wrong. So, well, the British military started an investigation into this. And as it turned out, they said it was a UFO. So I got it on paper from them. This was an unknown object. And the aircraft pilot, Mr. Achilles Sagetti, he described it as a brownish cigar-shaped thing that didn't look like anything that really should fly there. No wings, no cockpit, no tail, fin, nothing at all. So that was strange. And they were two in cockpit seeing this.
And did he, I always think about Japan Airlines and that case and how the pilot was, he lost his job. He was ridiculed. And thanks to Dr. Richard Haynes, who helped him, get back on his feet again after that sighting. I mean, did the pilots, did they suffer any repercussions because they
didn't.
Came out? That's great.
They were interviewed in Italian TV, and I think they were treated very fairly, really.
And that's wonderful. I mean, do you feel that people are starting to be more comfortable in talking about sightings, especially people who are commercial and military pilots?
In a way, yes. But I think it's always been quite easy to talk to even military observers. It just depends on how you approach them. UFO Sweden has never looked at the military as our enemy. We have looked at the military as another part, and we work together with the military on quite a few UFO cases. We have the possibility to screen radar returns, and I have personally been in a radar station, in a military radar station, seeing a UFO on the radar screen. So we try to work together instead of doing the opposite, and that is helpful. It's helpful all the way from the top to the bottom.
And you bring up a really important point to me. It's that you don't see the military as an enemy, and we do in the United States. People in ufology are very, we've got to, protect everything, and they're trying to pull one over on us, and so we have to be suspicious of the military or government and things. And perhaps if we just realize they're regular people like us and that we could approach them and work with them, we might be in a much better situation.
I think so. I mean, those guys I'm talking about, I have known for decades. And when they have left for retirement, they have told the next guy in line, you can trust this guy, which is me in this case. And then we can start over again. So the military, of course, need to keep certain things classified. I don't trust the military in that way. I mean, their role is quite an opposite role from UFO Sweden's role, of course. But if you get to know the guys inside the system, it's much easier to get the tip-offs, the help, and take a step forward.
And I agree as well. I mean, this is something that I've worked very hard on over here, is establishing relationships with a lot of different people and different occupations, different branches of the government. And that's important because at the end of the day, we're all here to do the same thing. At least most of us are. Mm-hmm. You know, there is the thought that in America right now that there are people who want to profit from technology. And so we get some of those rumblings and different things. So I think that unfortunately taints the field. But I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that when we get back from break. And before we go to break, I want to talk a little bit about your blog. So Clas Svahn's blog, if you go to csblogg.ufo.se, you can, and I will again post the links for that as well, but you can go in here and see beautiful pictures of clouds, see his research, see his work with AFU, all of these great things. So I love that. And then also you have a documentary that came out. You were telling me that was a big hit over in Sweden, and it is the Ghost Rockets. I saw a trailer for it, and it looks really incredible. I'm going to have to watch it tonight.
Yeah, do that. It's won the prize in the United States as well. So
that's incredible. Can you give us just a little bit? We've got about 3 minutes to break. Will you just give us a little rundown on the movie, on the documentary?
Yeah, I can do that. It was a team from the south of Sweden, 2 producers and filmmakers who followed me for 4.5 years. And they followed me because they wanted to film how UFO Sweden works. But during the filming, after a year or so, we started a project, which I will go into after the break, I think. But that project was to find a crashed ghost rocket in the very, very north of Sweden. So they followed us during 2 expeditions in 2012 and 2014, when we tried to find this strange rocket-like UFO. And we got a radar return in this lake. But I can tell you more about that because we are going back there in December, hopefully, to find it.
And is the crew going with you, the documentary crew?
I don't think they have the money to do it. They put lots of money into this. I mean, 4.5 years of filming, and we will film ourselves this time, I think. But we will document it. Last time I did broadcast from the lake. It's right in the middle of nowhere. We got an internet connection from a sponsor, and we broadcasted every day through our Facebook site, Ghost Rockets. And we will probably do something this time as well. But this time it will be in the middle of the night. It will be December. It's 1 hour light up there. It's 35 degrees Celsius minus. And it's quite harsh conditions. But we will do that because of the ice, which will help us.
Oh, that will be incredible. I wish I could come over for that. That's fascinating. I love it. We'll talk a little bit more about your adventures in Ghost Rockets when we come back. I'm Erica Lukes here with Clas Svahn. This is UFO Classified. You can find me at ufoclassified.com or on UFO Classified on Facebook. I have interviews there, and I'll be updating and providing documents with regard to research ghost rockets. I'll put information on tonight about that, so stick around. We will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back and happy Fantopia Friday. I am Erica Lukes. I was happy to be here and see my friends in chat. I get messages from all over the world every day. People reaching out to me, wanting good information and telling me their stories. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that. And I hope that I can give you information that will improve your personal research and steer you in the right direction. I have in the past brought on people who I hold in high regard, people like Robert Powell, like Barry Greenwood, Jan Aldrich. Tonight I'm joined by Clas Svahn, who is an incredible researcher in Sweden. He's been doing this for 40 plus years. But all of those people I mentioned wrote a book that if you are really, truly serious and want to learn about this subject, you need to get. It is one of my favorites. It's UFOs and Government, a Historical Inquiry. I recommend it. Get it. You will learn a lot. So Clas is a researcher, as I was mentioning. He is he's vice president of AFU, which is the world's largest archive on UFOs, the paranormal, unexplained. It is a beautiful facility. I hope to get there someday. But he began investigating cases when he was 14. He is a journalist and is in a documentary, Ghost Rockets, which looks incredible. I'm going to be watching. We were talking a little bit about that before we left off. And so let's continue. Clas, welcome back. Let's continue where we left off.
Well, the Ghost Rockets are, to me, the greatest UFO mystery of all times, really. It was quite unknown for many Swedes up until the documentary was aired a couple of years ago. But to your listeners, I should say that it started in 1946 when the Swedish military, they were getting around 1,000 reports in only 6 months of elongated cigar-shaped objects flying over Sweden. Of course, many of them were seen in the night and probably misinterpretations of meteors or whatever. But the daytime observations, in many of them, these objects were crashing, and they always crashed into lakes. And just in one single day, on July the 19th, it was 4 crashes within 4 hours in the northern part of Sweden. So this was not understood by the military. They really tried to find an explanation. They thought it was the Russians, which we always think when something happens around Sweden. But sometimes it's right, but not this time. Because the military sent down people to try to find those crashed objects, and there were nothing. There were just indentations. There were holes in the bottom of lakes. They could see stones thrown up on the shores. They could see water lilies cut off by those crashes. But they didn't find a single scrap of metal. Not a single debris were found. So this was a mystery. And after 1946, this has continued up until modern times.
And so were these also called the spook flyers?
No, that's a different phenomenon, really. They were in the 1930s. 1933, 1934, 1936, 1937. Hundreds and hundreds of reports of so-called ghost flyers were seen from the northern part of Sweden, Norway, and Finland. And I have read, I think, every single report and every single newspaper article. And to me, 99% of them were identifiable objects. But there also was, we know that now, spy aircraft sent up by a German ship outside Norway, flying over those parts of Scandinavia, creating observations as well. But of course, as in every UFO wave, there are single cases that are strange. But when it comes to the ghost rockets, there are so many daylight observations, many witnesses at the same time, even military pilots chasing the ghost rockets. And I talked to those people. I met with the military pilots and the witnesses. And I met with the researchers who, in 1946, did those investigations. I read every single document I had found. And to me, it's a bona fide hardware flying in the skies. It's not just a speck of light. It's something real, something crashing. You can see the water column coming up from the lake when it's crashed.
And so tell us, when this wave started to happen back in 46, what was the most pivotal case to you during that time frame?
I think the most important case was the one from July 19th, when 4 objects crashed within 4 hours. Because it started off at around 11 o'clock in the very north of Sweden, where several people saw an object like an aluminium milk can, a big thing, a couple of meters long, coming up from the southern horizon, rotating around its own axis, and slowly passing over the entire sky in around 15 or 20 minutes. And when it vanished, in minutes after that, an object crashed in a lake 40 miles further north. And I met with that guy who saw that as well. And after that, just 15 minutes after that, another crash. And there was a full village of people who saw that. They could hear the noise. They looked up in the sky. They saw this cigar-shaped thing with wings coming crashing down in front of them with a 20-meter water column up in the sky. The windows were rattling. The dogs and cats, they ran away, were scared by the noise. And after that, another object crashed another 100 miles further north. And then after that, another one further south. And there were multiple witnesses on all of those crash sites. And the military went there and tried to find it. They looked for weeks, but they couldn't find a single piece of metal, nothing.
And so how did the press represent this at the time?
They wrote loads of articles about those observations, even though the military had asked the press not to write exactly where the observations were made, because they didn't want to alert the Soviet Union and Russia how as they thought, their rockets did hit Sweden. But they wrote a lot of it, and they also wrote where things happened. They didn't really listen to the military. 50% of the articles pinpointed where this stuff happened. But this was mentioned. It is very interesting to see that not a single article ever in 1946 mentioned any connection to aliens or to this coming from another planet. There were no speculations. They came in 1947.
And again, you bring up a great point. I always try to look back at that time period and figure out where the extraterrestrial hypothesis came from, and was that an attempt to mislead people? I don't know, but I think we ought to maybe pull away from that. What are your thoughts?
I think it's not very good to look for a certain explanation. I mean, if you're an ET believer, that's fine, but it's not fine if you are always looking for that answer. To me, the UFO phenomena are several phenomena. I mean, it's not just one phenomenon. And I don't think we will find just one answer. And to say that you are believing in ETs coming here, it narrows your perspective. It makes your investigations problematic. You cannot see other possible solutions. So UFO Sweden, as an organization, we are saying that we are neutral, we are objective. We are not doing this to prove our point. We are doing this to trying to find the answer for whatever it is.
And that is really important, and I hope we can try to emulate that here in the States. With the ghost rockets and then the military trying to kind of scramble and figure out what, was this an enemy craft of some sort? What interest did the United States take in all of that at the time?
Well, there were great interests from both United States and from Great Britain, mostly. The British contacted the Swedish military quite early on. They wanted to send radar units to Sweden to help us. But in the end, the Swedish Prime Minister stopped that cooperation. But you can see in documents from that time that the British are writing that the Swedes do not want the Americans to know about the cooperation between Great Britain and Sweden. But of course, the Americans knew they had their own channels, and you can see briefing papers presented to President Truman about the ghost rockets. And you can also see copies of secret reports from the Swedish military that ended up in Washington. So there were a leakage.
And I have to say, I was listening to a really interesting radio show the other day, and they were mentioning the fact that what better way to obtain information about what another country is working on than to kind of infiltrate the UFO community.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to do something like that, it's good to know ufologists, to try to make contacts with ufologists. I think so, and probably this has been done. I mean, we know that to a certain extent it's been done in the US, infiltration like that, and also in Great Britain. I have not seen that in Sweden. I cannot guarantee it hasn't happened, but I don't think it has.
Well, it sounds like you have a much better relationship. So if they had any questions or things, they could just come to you, and you would be cooperative and forthright with things. You're not working against each other.
No, I mean, just a couple of years ago, I asked the Swedish military if they could scan their entire files for us. So they put one person for 3.5 months and scanned everything, and they gave it to me on a hard drive. So we do have very good cooperation, and when it comes to very special cases, I always been able to go to the Swedish Defense Research Institute, which is a part of the defense, and to get help from physicists and people who have more knowledge about technical stuff than I have, to get help to identify stuff and to get films analyzed.
That's absolutely mind-blowing, I think, to me and to many others in over here, because we don't see that, but we also see a lot of people that sit around on Facebook and criticize this new, like the Tom DeLonge, the To the Stars Academy, some of this new things that are happening here. A lot of people criticize it instead of maybe offering help or assistance to try to figure it out. But what are you thinking over there when you see To the Stars, and what are your thoughts? Is this something we should be excited about, or should we maybe be we should kind of see where it goes?
Well, I gave a briefing to Jim Semivan, who is on the board for To the Stars. I briefed him here in Sweden a couple of years ago, and showed him AFU. I consider him to be a friend of mine, and I also spoken to Luis Elizondo for quite a while, and I am discussing with them right now trying to find a cooperation between To the Stars and AFU. The important thing for us is that we must always be standing on our own feet. No connections, really. We are there for helping ufologists all around the world, whatever their beliefs are. I respect To the Stars, I respect the MUFON, I respect many organizations that are trying to find an answer. That's fine. And if we can be a part of that, and I think we can, because AFU is a huge depository of knowledge, I think we can gain from it, all of us.
I absolutely agree, and that is great to know that Jim Semivan and Luis have open communications with you, and they're probably very grateful for that, because that might not be something they have seen in the United States with other researchers.
Mm.
And yeah. I love it. I've been very, I think that it gives us a great platform here in the United States. I was thrilled about that. And the second the story broke, I contacted journalists in my area to try to get information out. And if we use this as a platform to get good work out here, it could really be a beneficial thing for all of us.
I mean, the problem is that so many ufologists all around the world sees each other as competitors. And I'm very glad that I am on quite a few very good email lists with fantastic researchers that are sharing information all the time, not hiding information, which is very, very common when it comes to ufologists. If you ask someone who have worked with a case for, say, 10 years, he's very reluctant to give you his stuff. He will publish what he finds in his interests quite often. But to see the basic stuff is very, very hard. But I am fortunate enough to be in contact with many people who really share, because they want us all to find the solutions, to find the answers.
So explain how AFU works in the collection process. How do you obtain different archives, different collections from researchers?
Well, AFU, I should say, started in 1973. The acronym stands for Archives for the Unexplained. But we started out as Archives for UFO Research. But after some years, especially in the late 90s, we saw that there were so many other possible connections and so many other topics that we should cover. So nowadays we are covering everything that is Fortean, which means paranormal. It can be ghosts, it could be sea monsters, it could be strange, unusual, natural phenomena, and it could be UFOs. And what we do, I mean, we are a handful of people really doing this. We are connecting people all around the world to us, trying to make them understand that their files, they must be preserved, not lost when they are gone eventually. We have seen so many fantastic libraries and files turning up at the dump after a ufologist had passed away. So I never hesitate. I'm calling people, I'm writing to people all the time, every week. And I've been traveling to so many countries. I've been to California a couple of years ago, saving a huge archive from the 1940s up to the 1990s, from the small town of Eureka. And that is now at AFU. I go to Britain at least once every year. I've been there 20 times in the year 2000 and brought back around, I should say, 20 ton of material. So we are trying to show people that we are helping them to preserve their work, their memory, and make that available to other researchers all around the globe, whatever their thoughts about the phenomenon are.
And that is critical. I have become good friends with Barry Greenwood and Jen Aldrich. I They are my mentors, and they have spoken how important about exactly what you just mentioned, how really critical it is for us to obtain that so that work isn't lost forever. And the thing that strikes me is quite sad is there's so many people that dedicate their whole lives and sacrifice money, relationships, jobs, and at the end of their lives, they feel just so downtrodden that they throw their work away, or a spouse throws it away, because they don't understand the importance.
I mean, take Flying Saucer Review, for example. Flying Saucer Review was the world's largest and absolutely best UFO magazine for decades. Now it's still around, but not as good as before. It took me 10 years, 10 visits to a guy in Rickmansworth, a garage there, to bring the complete files from the 1950s up till today back to Sweden. And I can give you another example. I met a guy in Great Britain just a couple of years ago, and he told me about another guy. His name is Peter Rogerson. And Peter had a huge library. And this friend of mine said, do not call him. He will never, ever give you anything at all. So I called him, of course, right away. I was in the pub in the south of England. And he answered, and he said, yes, I know about you, but I cannot meet you right now. I will be home very late. That's fantastic. We are very far away from you. We will be at your place very late. That's fine. You cannot park here. It's no parking place. We can park far away. We can walk. It's not a problem. Oh, it's very filthy at my place. Oh, we are not very well dressed. It's fine. I have no chairs. You cannot sit. Oh, we can stand. You can stand. I say, oh, I will not give you anything because I will give everything to my library here in Manchester. Okay, let's just meet. Okay, come, he said. So we came, and after an hour, we had 300 books with us out in the car. The next year, 2,000 books. And now 8,500 books from Peter Rogerson, who sadly passed away just a couple of months ago, mentioning AFU in his will. We also get money from him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story. And I'm sure you're like I am when I hold a book like that in my hands, and just know the history of that, not only the author, but anybody who's touched that book. I mean, it really moves me. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, we have 34,000 books around that in our library. And we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of newspaper clippings. We have also saved the entire BUFORA, the British UFO Research Association, the largest UFO group in Britain. We have saved their files for them because we have found them all around Britain. I spent years and years and years collecting them. And we scanned them all, and when they turned 50, I gave them everything. Their audio tapes, their film clips, their research papers, their UFO reports on a 1 terabyte hard drive back to them.
Oh, that is incredible. I'm saving up. I'm coming over there. I just have to. And we need to, when we get back from the break, I want to talk a little bit more about ghost rockets. And so there's so much more to talk about. And humanoids. I will talk about that. But I want to tell people, if you don't know about AFU, please go to AFU's website, which is www.afu.se/AFU2. So you can go there to learn about AFU. Again, I'll be providing the links on social media and on UFOclassified.com. I am thrilled to have Clas Svahn here today. We will talk more on the other side of the break.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back. I am here with Clas Svahn, and this is an absolute treat. Clas has done very few interviews. I know he's done a couple interviews on Martin Willis, and it is important for us to have people with his credentials on UFO Classified because we want to get good information out and show people how it is done in other countries, what we can do to be better observers, what we can do to be better researchers, and how we can assist in preserving history, which is something that Clas has done for decades. He is chairman of AFU, which is the Archives for the Unexplained, and travels all over the world collecting archives to add to this very important body of materials. Clas, welcome back, and we've covered so much, and there's so many questions. You will have to come back, but we were talking about your documentary Ghost Rockets, about the collections that you have recovered, including Peter Rogerson, which that is a really touching story. I love that you have that he turned around on that, and you got all of his stuff, and I'm sure he is very happy that it has gone to a good home. That's incredible. So let's talk a little bit about, I want to go back to some of the Ghost Rockets sightings, because these are things that are still happening now. Could you walk us through the history and what you're seeing current day?
I mean, as we discussed before, it started in 1946, but it didn't stop in 1946. In 1948, a ghost rocket was seen crashing in the lake east of Stockholm, and the guy who saw it was the commander-in-chief of the Swedish Armed Forces, Helge Jung. And I mean, when a guy that high-ranking sees a ghost rocket in broad daylight crashing in front of him, things happens. He started surveillance, radar surveillance. He started aircraft surveillance all around the Swedish borders, and he sent divers down to try to find this rocket, but they didn't find anything. It was a huge thing. It was many, many meters long. And it was crashing in front of him and a friend. They even took a rowing boat and went out to this site, but it was 18 meters deep, so they couldn't, of course, see anything. So, I mean, the ghost rockets have been seen by ordinary people and all the way up to the Supreme Commander in this case. But this has not stopped even up till modern times. The most important observation, and the one that the documentary deals with, happened in 1980, when a couple of people from Stockholm, a man and his coming wife, were out walking in a wooden area up in the very, very north of Sweden. They stopped south of a lake called Namajaur, and they heard a noise from the heavens, and they saw from the south an elongated object coming flying towards them, very, very low, flying over them and going down towards the lake, but not crashing. It turned 180 degrees around, coming back towards them. And they were scared. They thought this was the Russians coming to get them. But it didn't crash. It landed, and they could see it sinking. The bubbles were coming up from it. It sank in front of them. And the military tried to find it, but they never dived. They just sent a helicopter to try to look for it. But now we have died for it. UFO Sweden have died for it, and we will go there again this winter.
And I would love to be there for that. That sounds, you're going to be in harsh conditions, but what an experience will that be?
I mean, what we know is that we see a radar return on the bottom of the lake. We have used sonar and metal detectors this far. This time we will bring an earth-penetrating radar with us, driving on the ice on snowmobiles and pinpointing this radar return. And now we will be able to see this object in 3 dimensions. And at that time we will know if this is a reindeer, a stone, or a ghost rocket.
Oh, that'll be incredible. And I have to ask you, I mean, are there any changes in vegetation around the areas? Is there any change in the environment?
No, nothing. It's the same as it was in the 1980s.
That's fascinating. And have there been any reports where people have actually seen humanoids in the ghost rockets?
I think I know about one report from the 1970s when several people saw a cigar-shaped object with portholes and faces looking out of the portholes. The faces were ugly, fearsome looking, and then it flew away. But that is not really a ghost rocket, because when it's flying and navigating and going away, and it's more than, say, 15 meters, it's not really a ghost rocket. The ghost rockets are flying much faster, often crashing. So it's hard to distinguish, really. I mean, I cannot tell really exactly the difference.
And so is this a phenomena that is strictly taking place in your part of the world, or have you found cases in any other part of the world that resemble ghost rockets?
Yeah, that's interesting, because let's just say it's in Norway, it's Finland, and it's Sweden. A little from Denmark as well. And you can find a report from Greece as well, and from some other countries in Europe. But they are not really at the same magnitude as the ghost rockets. They are single cases. And I should say no, really. I mean, there is not really. The ghost rocket phenomenon is a Scandinavian phenomenon.
And it's curious because, you know, you look at reports from different parts of the world, and you look at South America, and the reports are much different than what you would see in the United States. And you mentioned on Martin's show that the abduction phenomena is something that seems to be taking place in the United States and doesn't necessarily happen over in your part of the world.
It's very, very scarce here. It's every 5 years or something like that you can get something, not an abduction really, but entities. I mean, I investigated one very, very strange case with entities involved. It was from the early 1990s. It was a guy who wrote to me after reading one of my books, and he invited me to come down to meet with him and his wife. So I went there. Unfortunately, he didn't tell his wife that I was coming, so she was very reluctant to talk to me. But it took a couple of hours, and then everything changed, and we sat there in the sofa and had a very nice conversation. And she tells me that when she goes to bed every night, she usually wakes up exactly in the same position. She sleeps soundly, and, well, yeah, she sleeps good. But this night, she woke up curled like a fetus, staring with her eyes down to the bed. She was floating around 10 or 20 centimeters over the bed. And she was drawn backwards out of the bed by some force. The bedroom, which had been dark when it started, there was some light in it. She could see her husband lying there sleeping. So she tried to waking up, but she couldn't use her voice. It was all, something had happened to her. She couldn't talk. So she grabbed her husband with her hand, and he woke up. And he tells me that he sees his wife floating in the air, drawn backwards out of the bed towards three entities, like the Whitley Strieber entities, really. No hair, black eyes, small noses, small mouths, tiny arms. And he thinks, what should I do? So he tried to kick them. And when he does that, exactly at the moment he tried to pull off his kick, everything went dark, and he can hear his wife falling to the floor, because at that time she has passed out of the bed and she's falling to the floor, and she climbs up into the bed. And if you think that is strange, the next thing that happens is much more strange, because they look at each other. Well, it's dark, but they talk to each other, and they say, "What the hell was that?" And then they fell asleep again. The next day, they discussed this. I mean, I talked to them for hours and hours, and now they are divorced. I call them again. They have no one to protect anymore. They tell the same story after all of those years. And that is what I do. I go back to the witnesses, always after a couple of years, call them again and see if the stories have changed. And this is a very, very strange story. I mean, it's a shared experience in many ways.
And so what are your, I know sometimes it's hard when we are trying to be look at this from a scientific perspective, and you've got the nuts and bolts ufologists or different things, and then you start dealing with these abduction cases or entity cases, and that can be pretty mind-blowing for people. But what are your thoughts on that, and how do you feel, how does your group over in Sweden feel with regard to the abduction phenomena?
I mean, I just finished a new book which is going to be printed in a week, and it's about people's encounters with entities of different kinds. I mean, trolls, aliens, elves, gnomes, Virgin Mary, Jesus, everything. And when you do that, you can see that there are so many similarities. So it's hard to say that those entities, they are from Zeta Reticuli. Those are trolls. Those are folklore entities. There are so many common features. And I work with a group on the internet that are looking back from 1947 backwards in history, trying to find UFO and entities and reports like that. And we do that all the time. We find a lot of stuff. And you can see that they have been around in different shapes even then. So the question is, are the different shapes formed inside our own minds? Are we the ones who interpret those as Jesus or gnomes or ETs? Or have those entities changed during the times? Or what is happening really? I don't have that answer, but I think it's very important to have an open mind when it comes to where those entities really have their origin. Inside ourselves, outside ourselves, or something completely different.
And this reminds me of the work of Dr. Jacques Vallée. I mean, he has written many books on that very topic, and the need to look back historically and to understand that these things are, that it has been with us since the beginning of recorded time. And so what is that? How do we make the distinction between ET, interdimensional, all of these things? It's such a mind-blowing process.
It
for
is,
all
and
of
it's very, very difficult to label, I think. You must try to evaluate all this as neutral as you can. And you have to work with the folklorists to do this. You have to work with the psychologists to do this as well. You cannot work with the physicists to do this. You have to find other ways, because it's a human thing. In many, many ways, it's a human thing. Without a human being, there are no observations. I mean, that says something about what we are dealing with, I think.
So have you had personal experiences?
I mean, I'm an amateur astronomer. I've been out thousands and thousands of hours. I have seen stuff. And I'm very glad to say that I've seen one of the strangest things together with my wife, which makes it easier to be two. It was in 1995 on November the 5th. We were traveling in our car coming from small cities north of Stockholm. We've been there on a party. I was driving. She was sitting to the right of me. And coming into our community, I saw two guys standing at the bus stop. It was around 1 o'clock in the night. And one of them were pointing up in the sky, and the other guy was looking. So I said to Anneli that, can you take a look and see what they are looking at? And she bent forward and took a look and said, no, I cannot see anything, but it's a fantastic heavens, the stars everywhere. It's crystal crisp, clear. And at that time we were passing them, and we went home. It was just 400 or 500 meters. And we parked our car, went out, and started scanning the skies to see what they were looking at. And she was standing 2 meters from me, and we were looking around. And suddenly, just out of the black starry sky, 3 bright crosses, or say plus signs, really, like taken from a book of mathematics, came flying beside each other over us. And we saw them, both of us. They were quite big, very easy to see. And they flew over our house. And I ran around the corner. I could follow them flying over our neighbor's house. And eventually vanishing in the horizon. So I said to Anneli, we must do this by the book. At that time I was chairman of UFO Sweden. I am just vice chairman. But we went inside, sitting in different rooms, taking those forms that we usually give to witnesses, filled them out without talking to each other, made drawings, everything. And after that, we talked. And then I put another researcher trying to find an explanation to this, which we never did. And I do not know up to this day what it was. It was flying over us. It was very strange. It didn't look like a ship or nothing like that. It was just 3 plus signs flying over us.
And I bet you were, like you were saying, happy to have your wife there to witness that with you. So you could, the sighting had more weight to it. That's. Yeah. I bet you both were blown away.
Yeah, we were. And the good thing coming from this was that I suddenly understood how difficult it is for a UFO witness to share this, to share his or her experience, to tell about it. I mean, I had great difficulties to tell my friends in UFO Sweden about it. It took quite a long time before I did that. And we have had those fantastic projects in UFO Sweden when we have knocked doors around Sweden, talking to 1,300 people, just knocking their door, asking, have you seen something? And 10% of those people have seen stuff in the sky that they didn't understand, and they never reported to anyone, not any UFO group, not the military, not anyone. 10% should be 1 million people in Sweden. We are 10 million here.
Oh my gosh.
And we have 20,000 reports in UFO Sweden's archives at AFU. 20,000, and there is 1 million more out there that have seen things that they don't understand. And many of those have seen things like that we saw that are so strange that they don't tell them easily.
It's a very vulnerable feeling when you go out there, especially, I mean, as a researcher, you want to maintain credibility, and it is, I know for myself, I've had some interesting experiences in my lifetime, and it is difficult for me to talk about them as well.
Yeah. And it's good to have been a witness, to have been on that side as well. I learned a lot from that, I should say. It was very, very good. And I told about this experience in a Swedish radio interview many years later. And then a guy called me and said, my mother saw 3 plus signs, exactly like the ones you saw in the 1930s. So I called her, and she had been out with her mother, who was inside the house talking with her friends, and she was waiting outside. When suddenly, in the broad daylight, those 3 plus signs appeared on the road not far from her. They were rolling on the road for 4 or 5 seconds. They were coming from nothing, vanishing into nothing, like they were just visitors in her part of her reality for 5 seconds. So they were not flying, but they were rolling. So yeah, you meet so many interesting people and so many interesting stories when you're doing this.
And I love that. I know I love going to just a little quiet cafe, in a tiny town, and just sitting there and approaching people that walk in the door. Or, talking to people that I would interact with in a business sense, or different things. And like you said, a lot of it is surprising to hear how many people have stories and they just have never reported it. And you learn so much just from those interactions.
I mean, there is nothing like luck. Luck isn't. I mean, you create your own luck, because if you don't talk to people, you are never lucky. If you're just walking your own way, you never talk to anyone, you don't ask people. But when I go with a taxi, I talk to the taxi driver. I'm sitting in the front of the taxi every time, I'm always talking to people. And then I'm lucky. I get lucky so many, many times to hearing the stories, meeting people that are now my friends. So I think you must be outspoken about your interest. You must show that you are interested in taking part of people's lives. Then you can be a good UFO researcher, because then you have so many good stuff to work with.
Absolutely, and it is critical that we don't just sit behind a computer and wait for cases to roll in, and that's another thing that we do here. We get disgruntled because, we don't have enough cases that were, put into a database or yada yada, but it's the cases that I found most profound to me, and actually were great cases, were the cases that I was out there talking to people and doing what you're describing, making sure that people understand that they knew that they could come to me, and they've been great cases with radar data. So I love that. I'm Erica Lukes here on UFO Classified. This is our last break. I'm here with Clas Svahn, and I will be giving you his links and info, as well as information about AFU. We will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. I hope that you have fun listening to UFO Classified. Make sure you share the love, share the information, send links to your friends so we can grow the show. I always want to thank people in chat who take the time to get in there and ask respectful and thoughtful, really intelligent questions. My listeners are the best listeners in the world, and I appreciate you very, very much. I am here tonight with someone who has made considerable contributions to the field, and he is located over in Sweden. He has been researching this since the 70s. His name is Clas Svahn, and he can be seen in a documentary, The Ghost Lights, which I will be watching later tonight. He is the head of UFO Sweden and is the chair of AFU, which is the Archives for the Unexplained, and that is the biggest collection of archives in the world. You can go check that out at afu.se/AFU2 to learn about the information about the archives. But Clas, when we left off, you were talking about your own personal sightings and how you really find the best way to get information is to just be in an environment where a person is comfortable and get information from them. And it really is incredible to see how a lot of people have, whether paranormal experiences with strange sightings, strange objects in the sky, that people do have experiences that they're often reluctant to share.
It's very important to document them. I mean, it's very important to preserve people's stories, whatever they are, for the future. I work very closely together with Swedish folklorists, and they say to me that what you are doing in UFO Sweden and AFU is something that will be so important, say 50 or 100 years from now. Because whatever you think about UFOs or ghosts or the paranormal, those are the things that we are talking about today. Those are the things that people are believing in today. Those are today's folklore. I mean, it's not to say less of the phenomenon because we call it folklore, because it's the stories, the essential stories that we really need to save, whatever they are. That's my drive, really.
And that's important. I've noticed here in Utah, I've been working overtime to try to find collections of researchers here, and it really is, it's been a little bit depressing because so many people glom onto their archives or they take them out of state and don't share all the information, and that's been very difficult, but I hope that will change in the near future so we can have history about Utah and the important sightings that we have taking place here. But we'll see. So how does AFU obtain funding? Because this has to be, obviously there are several people on staff. This is a large location to house all of this. So you have to really be concerned about obtaining funding and keeping the operation up and functional.
When we started in 1973, we had one bookshelf in a small town south of Stockholm. Now we have 12 and a half premises on the same street in another city called Norrköping. So we have been expanding by obtaining a new cheap premises, mostly basement, but we also have two above basement level. And a normal week, maybe there are 15 people working there. Most of us are doing this as volunteers. We pay for it. We pay a lot of money for it every year. But we have donations. We have a circuit of donators that are supplying everything from a couple of dollars up to a couple of $100 every month. But it is expensive. I mean, we pay a couple of $1,000s just in rent every month. And as you said, we have a few people employed as well. But we do get some money from the Swedish Unemployment Agency to keep them. We do pay some part of their salaries as well. So at this time, AFU is losing a little money every month. And that is, of course, not very good. We are trying now to start a crowdfunding, probably this summer or early this autumn. And I urge everyone who really cares for the history of UFOs or the paranormal to be with us in this, because this is so important, not only for us, but for everyone to understand what happened in the 1900s or the 20th century and 21st.
And also, people don't understand, I'm a business owner, and people don't understand when you start a business or a non-for-profit, the startup cost, the cost to maintain a business. You've got insurance, you've got electricity, you've got website. I mean, all of these costs that people just don't grasp. And so it's important that you get donations from the private sector.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to bring in money from people I meet. The last 2 years, I brought in around $15,000 just by asking people for money to AFU and selling my own books to them and giving them money from the books to AFU. That's one thing. We don't have any large donators. We had one from the US a couple of years ago who helped us tremendously. He did it for a year, a little more than a year. That helped us a lot. But what we need is to find the money for one location to bring all of our stuff, as Peter Rogerson would call it, all of our stuff into one location. Because going from those 12 locations to find something sometimes is very time consuming, as you can understand. But we are scanning all the time. We are scanning magazines, reports, newspaper articles, and we want to make those available for researchers all around the world, probably through some sort of subscription, which will not be expensive but very cheap. And the ones who have helped us with donations, they will have access to this for free, of course.
And that would be incredible. I'm sure I would just spend the rest of my life looking through.
You could do that. You could do that.
Absolutely. And that is, I love it. And I hope that you continue to get donations. And this is an important collection. I want to ask you a little bit about the paranormal phenomena with regard to this. I mean, what in your investigations have you found are the parallels, if any, between UFO sightings and the paranormal?
Well, when it comes to entities, which is the most common, I think, when you're going to compare those two, you can see that they are not very trustworthy. And I mean the entities are not very trustworthy. They tell things. They tell things to people that are not true, which is quite often the case. I am in contact with so many people who channel entities from all over the world, and they get so many bad informations all the time. So you wonder, who is behind this? Is it all coming from inside your own brain, or is it someone out there doing this? And when in UFO reports, when you meet entities, they are telling you that they are coming from that and that star system and whatever, but they never put any proof on the table. I mean, I spent the full day with Betty Hill discussing her and Barney Hill's experience, and when I came out from that discussion, I understood that nothing that I have read about the case really was what it was all about. was much more complicated, which is always the case when you go deeply inside a contactee or a channeling case. It's always much more complex than if you just read a summary in someone's book about it.
And that is true. It's complex, and it sometimes the more you learn, I mean, really, I sit there with my mouth open sometimes because it's just absolutely mind blowing. But I think that's part of the fun of it too. It's just a never ending journey.
I mean, if you put them together on a straight line and try to compare them, there's so many things that are different from case to case. I think the similarities are fewer, really. So it's hard to learn what the answer to all of this could be. I'm in contact with a Czech girl who is, or I should say woman, who is in contact with an alien, she thinks. And he supplies so many strange informations every day or every second day. That, I mean, why? Why should someone advanced, coming from another star system, put all this crap through an innocent girl on Earth? I don't know.
Do you find, because we hear a lot about the demonic element, and there are definitely factions, especially, and I think this takes place in Great Britain, but in the United States specifically, where people are thinking that all of this is demonic in nature, which again is a belief system. But
Gordon Creighton was the editor of Flying Saucer Review for many years. He thought that those were jinns. I mean, demons, really. And I'm not sure. I mean, it could be, of course, but there are no proof for that. There's so many descriptions of the entities. Everyone has his or hers favorite. So I don't listen to the theories and taking them at face value. I try to listen to what's behind them and what could be the controllable facts. That's the only way, really. What people think they have seen and what they think they are in contact with are less important, I think.
Absolutely. And so I want to ask you, if with all of the cases that you have investigated, what harmful effects has a human being suffered from being in close proximity? Because that seems to be something that is coming up here now, and I wondered what you could tell me about your work over there.
Very few cases, I should say, here in Sweden, but there are a couple of them, where people have had problems with their eyesight after seeing. In the 1970s, there was observations in the north of Sweden. People saw a small man standing near the side of the road when they passed with their cars. Some of them had very, very powerful lights shining at the people who were sitting in the car. And at least one, I should say two maybe, had problems with their eyes afterwards and had to go to doctors to get help from that. Beside that, there are very few instances where people have been harmed or gotten physical problems afterwards. There are some more, but say maybe 10 or 15 all in all I know about.
And that really says something, because like I said, here we are so prone to follow kind of these cult-like beliefs that people put out there. And then also, there's a lot of people that want, or well, not a lot, but a few people that are trying to instill a sense of fear. And these are harmful. And, I really encourage people to step back and look at the facts and take what you're hearing, especially on YouTube or the internet, with a grain of salt until you truly understand what's going on. But that's good to know. That's good information.
Yeah, I don't think this is harmful in any way. It could scare people, of course, and people can do stupid things when they are scared. But I have not seen any proof of that those entities should be harmful in any respect, really. So no, very few cases, and unintentional harm, I should say, in those cases.
So I want to ask you too, because this is one of my favorite topics, anomalous light phenomena. And, you know, we tend to dismiss, I think, the lights in the sky cases. You know, obviously a lot of them are misidentifications, but sometimes, as we see in Hessdalen, there's truly something phenomenal taking place. What types of cases have you had in Sweden?
We just published a large report about observations of globes of lights in Sweden. Our report center has spent months and months and months and going through the files and taking a closer look at the bona fide, the best cases. And it turned out to be 19 cases all in all, where people at close range have experienced those lights, like balls of lights, sometimes affecting their cars or themselves. And what we have seen from this report is there is no connection to earth lights, together with earthquakes, you can see earth lights sometimes. There's no connection to them. And there's no connection to, as we see now, ball lightning. But ball lightning is not fully understood. So I think that those phenomena are going inside each other in a way, the UFOs and the ball lightnings. But there are some very good cases. I investigated one myself a couple of years ago. I went to the west part of Sweden. There was a family, a man and his wife, and there a small girl sitting back in the car sleeping. And they were traveling in the darkness of night, going back home. It was 11 o'clock in the evening, I think. And suddenly there was this ball of light coming from the woods, turning and passing straight towards the car. And when it was to hit the car, it raced just a meter, so it missed the car. But the radio was affected, and they could feel the car pushed aside like a strong wind had passed them. And they could see this ball of light passing behind them. It was illuminating everything behind them, and then it vanished. So it was very physical, and two witnesses. So it was a good case. There are some good cases. Hessdalen, the lights there are far away, mostly. UFO Sweden, who started the Hessdalen project in 1980s, together with UFO Norway, we say today that very, very, very few cases that were seen and recorded at that time are real strange lights in the sky. Most were other things, really. And Hessdalen is, of course, still very much of interest for us, but it's not as common as people would think. You cannot go there and see something. It's not that easy.
I wish it was, but no, it's definitely, there's no rhyme or reason for when or if you'll be lucky enough to have an experience. It's incredible. It's what makes it so difficult to study, as you know. Yep. But is there a place that we could see the research that you were just mentioning?
It's posted on ufo.se, but I'm sorry, it's in Swedish. We'll see if we can translate it into English. We have not discussed that yet. That is the problem, because Swedish is a very small language, but AFU.se, everything is in English. and AFU speaks English only. So that's easy. But UFO Sweden is, of course, directed to the Swedish audience, and there it is posted. But it's hard to read.
So we're getting ready to wrap up the show, and I want to ask you what are your favorite, if you were to recommend 3 books to the listeners to expand their education, what 3 books would you pick?
You mentioned UFOs and government, and I'm part of that, of course, and I shouldn't recommend it. But it is a very good book. If you don't read my chapters, read the other ones, and they are very, very good. We spent so much time doing that research, really. So, of course, you can read Jacques Vallée. That's always a good read. Jacques is a very good writer. I met with him in San Francisco, I think it was last year, and he's still a very, very good researcher and writer. So Jacques Vallée, everything he writes are of interest, I should say. What should I say more?
Just and let me add, and that those are great. And I mean, Jacques Vallée is one of my favorites, and I always am picking up one of his books and rereading it or finding different bits of information that I can glean knowledge from.
I mean, he wrote together with Chris Aubeck, Wonders in the Sky as well. And Chris Aubeck is probably the world's the best researcher when it comes to pre-1947 UFO cases. No one is better than Chris Aubeck. And he is very, very good in researching old files, old newspapers, and he's driving this Magonia emailing list, which I'm on as well, which is fantastic.
And that is a beautiful book. I have a copy, and I look at that. It's a treasure in my library. And he is a great researcher that you don't really hear a lot from because he's probably too busy researching and doing this.
That's right. I met him a couple of times in Spain, where he lives, and he's busy, very busy. But he's one of the best. And of course, there are so many other very good writers out there that. I mean, you should look for the ones with lots of footnotes, lots of references.
Absolutely. And that is great because a lot of the popular UFO books don't have a lot of references. So that is good information. And I want to just thank you so much for staying up late, for teaching all of us about your work, your life, AFU. And I want to tell people to please check out AFU, make donations if possible, and then look for the documentary, The Ghost Rockets, because this looks very, very cool. We'll be getting updates from you on your trip out there for the next research project. And where's the best place for people to find you?
Well, it's my blog at ufo.se, or just my Gmail, clas.svahn, gmail.com. I'm easily Googled. You can find me on Wikipedia and wherever.
Great. Well, we will keep the channels open. Thank you very much for being here. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into UFO Classified. It has been another groundbreaking, important night for this subject. Take care, and we will catch you next week. Make sure to stick around for Willie Miranda. We'll see you next time.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.